dear Lord, we come to you today with a great day, beautiful, and a lot of wisdom here, and a lot of nice logical decisions going to be put forth. And I can't think of a whole lot of other things to say. I mean, we said most of it, but in your name we pray.
Amen.
Amen.
This time I'll call the meeting of Hardy County Commission for October 3rd, regularly scheduled meeting to order at this time. Good to see the number present in our room today. We have present Ms. Julie Barb's civics or political science class with us today. We're glad to have them with us as a part of our meeting today. How many of you are here at a county commission meeting for the very first time? So pretty much all of you, which is good. Well, like I say, hopefully you'll see a little bit here today about some of the things that county government does, and we'll maybe take the opportunity a little bit farther in the agenda to at least share a few things that the county commission does. But just briefly, what we do is we look out for the financial responsibilities and obligations of the county, and the three of us serve in that capacity as commissioners, and we represent the people of Hardy County, and the decisions we make hopefully are made, all of our decisions are hopefully made for the improvement of life for our citizens. And so we do and take that responsibility very seriously. And like I say, hopefully, as you all continue to grow, you will consider becoming involved in civic engagement for the people. And it's because of your involvement that obviously things get done. And so we're glad to have you here with us today. Commissioner Fassler, Commissioner Sheetram, would you like to add anything to it?
Yes, I went out and of course spoke with you guys, but we're really glad you came out here also today. I can tell you that these are some really great kids. I think you guys will have some questions, right? You guys have some questions you might ask us at some point. I think Miss Barb, you guys will be able to stay for 1 hour. Maybe.
Yeah, we'll leave at 10.
They will leave at 10 o'clock. So yeah, if you see anything, definitely feel free to ask us any question. Okay, because it is all very interesting, and sometimes it's important to know the right questions to ask. So just pay attention and fire away when it comes to that time. But really glad you guys came out today. I'm really happy about that. I did just text the auditor, who is supposedly walking in right now. So it would be great to have him here as well.
Commissioner Fassler, anything you'd like to add?
No, I believe you all pretty much covered it.
Okay. All right. Well, since the auditor is not here yet,
He's walking in. He said he's walking.
I want to go.
I can go.
If he's close
to go.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and see.
We really want these. We want them to be able to see him.
Yes.
And talk to and hear from him. Right?
Yep.
Why are you pushing him towards an auditor?
It's all about the money.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We might need to buy furniture for the help.
Well, yeah, but auditors make me nervous.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
awesome. I love it. JD might be able to.
Hey,
Hi, everybody.
hello. We're waiting on you.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
It was
sir.
a long commute from the South Branch end.
Traffic was horrible this morning, wasn't it?
Auditor McCuskey, it is good to have you with us this morning. We have with us Miss Julie Barb's political science class from Moorfield High School, and you are the first on the agenda today, and so I would welcome you and ask for whatever comments you'd like to share at this time.
Sure, and so Skylar's going to do a little presentation too. But the long and the short of it is that we set out to get every county in West Virginia to put their finances online. Every county, every city, every school board, and the state government. And the reason is severalfold. The most important of them is that the people in this room deserve to know what the people in this room do. And as you go through, as you continue in schooling, and if you're really interested in political science, the thing that I find the most fascinating is that all of democratic government boils down to whether or not you can hold people accountable. And accountability cannot happen if you don't have information about what has happened before. And so what the checkbook site that these guys are launching today does is it takes every single financial action that the county takes and gives the people access to it. So when they go to the voting booth, they can say, you know, Commissioner Sheetram or Commissioner Workman or Commissioner Fansler told me they were going to do X, right? And they either did or they didn't. It's pretty binary. And then you can talk to them intelligently where everyone's speaking from the same hymnal and say, why or why not did you do this? And at that point, you can intelligently communicate about your government, and you can do the things you need to do to change your government if you want to. And for the entirety of my life, we lived in a state that worked the opposite. And you guys are Eastern Panhandle adjacent, right? And so we're in the we can't shout, Charleston can hear us area, right? Yeah. And so Charleston knows that. Charleston has always known that. And one of the things that they used to enable themselves to maintain their own power and to keep the status quo was to make information you needed to hold them accountable private from you. And it's public information. And so the first thing we did was we did it to the state. So we built the West Virginia checkbook. Have any of you guys been to it yet? Yeah, we actually have a budget builder sort of game on there where political science students in high schools go in and take the state budget and build it the way that they think it should be. And you have all the different ways, and then you can add context and submit them to us. What, we get 100 of them this year?
We got 100 hits, and we got about 25 budgets.
Yeah, which we would like to get a lot more. It's pretty cool. But the checkbook is fascinating. And give yourself, if you're lean a little nerdy like I do, some time, because it's a rabbit hole. And you'll start to see some patterns, and you'll start to see some things that you're probably not going to like. And the whole point here is that without this, you can't do that. It's your information, it's your money, and the way that politicians are spending it needs to be public. And so we didn't just build the site, we actually built the best one. The thing that's really cool is little old West Virginia is the most transparent state in the entire United States. And you have more access to your city, state, county, school board financial information in West Virginia than any other place in the entire country, which I think is awesome. You know, if little old West Virginia can do it, everybody else should be doing it too, including the federal government. But the long and the short of it is that this is your data. This is your information, and as voters and as citizens, it's your duty, really, to know what's in here and hold us accountable, me included. And so we're just really excited that you guys are on board. And are they 40?
They're around, well, they're about 36th live, and you guys are about 42nd to hop in the process.
And so that's the second thing I was going to mention to you. So the state government in Charleston frequently says to local governments, you have to do something. They're doing this voluntarily. And I think that's meaningful. And every county did it voluntarily. It goes to show that when, as a state, we provide really good resources to local governments and give them the chance to do the right thing, they do. And it works. I would rather have 45 willing participants than 55 unwilling participants. And the reason is because they are going to own this site. I don't own it. I'm giving it to them. And they're going to use it in ways that I don't know. And so when you add a product to the marketplace and let 55 willing participants use something their own way, all 55 of them are going to get better. If I were to have forced this on them, they would have just put it up, done the bare minimum, and nothing would have ever changed. I like to call it the Velcro effect. You guys know what Velcro shoes are, obviously. Do you know why a Velcro was invented? It was to hold stuff on the space shuttle in zero gravity. There's no way on earth that when they invented Velcro, they thought it was going to help people with Parkinson's tie their shoes. Right? So really good ideas, when you put them in the hands of people and let them use for however they want, they end up doing something you never thought they were going to. And that's what this is going to end up doing too. So I'm going to have Skylar sort of explain and the reports that are in there. And, you know, if you guys, I'm really excited you guys are here. I didn't know you were going to be. We can stay here as long as you want. and show you the state site, how to find these reports, and show you some ways that you can give me and our team feedback on stuff that you don't see, things that you wish you could see, things that you wish that the site did. So thank you guys so much for your willingness to do this. We're truly appreciative. And Skylar, why don't you give them a little tutorial?
Well, I don't know if I can. Hopefully, you guys can at least see it a little bit, and you guys will be able to have your own login, so you guys can get in and play around with it. And so, really, how we did this, I worked with the clerk, Mr. Greg Ely, and you guys have a QuickBooks system that you use to keep your books and to keep your records. We extracted your chart of accounts out of your accounting system. Now, what a chart of accounts is, for y'all that don't know, a chart of accounts is a listing of accounts, funds, departments, object codes that tell you what the data means. So you're able to go in and say, okay, what fund did this come out of? What was the object of the expenditure? What department did it go to? Was it for EMS? Was it for Sheriff's Office? Was it for the County Commission? All of those different types of descriptions have corresponding codes. And so we load in those codes and those descriptions first, and then we pulled out your profit and loss data. And that's basically just fancy term for general ledger activity. So your general ledger has revenues coming in, expenses going out. Everything that effectuates that ledger, we pulled out of the system and we applied it to that code structure that I just mentioned. So every time there's an expense, whether it be from the County Commission, the Sheriff's Office, Ambulance Authority, each transaction, whatever it's for, that corresponding code falls into that structure, and you're able to then filter by those codes. So if I want to look here, and if I want to search for, right now we're on an American Rescue Plan report. We have a few different reports that we built. They're all transaction level details. So, compliments to the commission. A lot of folks utilize just a checkbook, where that would be a simple just vendor statement of all the checks that they write to different vendors. They have actually done all of the details of the finances of the county. So you can go in there and see what they've matched for retirement, what they've matched for insurance, expenses that they've done for like the ambulance and what the sheriff spends money on, and XYZ. It's all in there. And what's powerful about that is, to JB's point, when you have that much data at your disposal, at your fingertips, you're able to compare and contrast different data points to make the right decisions. Something that we always talk about is, effective accountable government at the auditor's office. This allows for not politics to factor into decisions, not, just what everyone's opinion might be on a certain decision. The data tells you what the right decision is usually, if you can go in there and find it. Are we spending too much, in one department or not another department? Are we spending too much for gadgets and gizmos rather than, keeping the lights on? Those different departmental expenditures and those breakdowns and that analyzation allows you to make those good decisions. And so you're able to go here and filter through those different types of codes and those different account structures. If you want to go here to this right part right here, you can change that to a pie graph and then go down there and change your date. Right now we have about 3 years loaded. And so my goal now is to work with Mr. Ely and his staff to be able to get in more of that data. Right now it's up to the end of the fiscal year. So we're a couple months into the new fiscal year now. We're going to start to load that. And after we get done with these reports, another nice feature that I like to use all the time is what's called views. And so views are how we drive points in the platform to get you to the data that you want to look for. So everyone knows what filtering is. If you go into like your computer and you need to filter a certain set of data, you're able to filter that. Well, these are automatically applied filters. So if I want to look at a specific point in the data where there are specific expenditures on this, this is for fiscal year 23 alone, ARP expenditures. I click on that view, it automatically filters me to the ARP expenditures for that year. So if you have a group of students or if you have a group of constituents out in the field that want to see certain data, hey, how much did the sheriff spend last year? How much did you guys spend on utilities last year? How much did you do in matching contributions? You can filter that state. You can filter that point in the platform, add it as a saved view. Then it's right there on the front main page, so folks just got to click on it, which I think is invaluable because this is a lot of data. Some of it's complex. A lot of people don't understand government accounting. You're easily able to go in, click on that filtered view, and it takes you right to that point in the platform. So the second part of that, and this is probably my next step, once we get new data in for you guys, the next step is going to be to build the commission dashboards. And so what dashboards are, and JB uses this almost every day, we can build you dashboards for the data that's relevant to you. What decisions you want to make in any given month, any given year, things that you're working on, new projects in the county. If you want to monitor or track expenses for a certain thing that you're doing, if you want to set benchmarks, that's another nice thing about this internally for you guys. There's a lot of good external capabilities to communicate to constituents. I personally think the internal capabilities of the platform are what's really important, because that's going to help you guys do your job better. Not that you're not doing a good job already, but when you have this data-driven stuff, it makes it that much easier to do your job. And not to mention, we want to take work off of Mr. Ely and his staff. And whenever you have these dashboards, you guys can go in for yourself. And I'll just go ahead and bring this up real quick. This is what we built for the mayor and Nitro. And you can see here, he has a running integration. He has daily updates on what his revenue trends are, what his expense trends are, how much he's spending out of the general fund, contributions to other funds, interdepartmental transfers. Whenever they decide to make an ARP expenditure for a certain vendor or a certain group, that immediately falls in there. Then they can monitor and track how much they spend on ARP at any given second, rather than having to ask Mr. Ely or his staff to run that report and get them that data. You can automatically just hop in there and find it for yourself, save some time on their end, and you're constantly able to monitor that. Sort of decentralizes that workflow and makes it easier for you. So there's three parts. There's the reports, which I've covered, the dashboards, there's that. The last thing, and probably your favorite thing, is the stories. And so, real quick example about stories. This is what we built for Elkins. Now, this is pretty simple, pretty rudimentary. I've been trying to get them to build on it with me to do more with it, but they had the penny tax in Elkins. And so, what do people do when you raise their taxes? You get your pitchforks and your torches and you march on City Hall, right? What are you doing with our money? Well, they actually had that problem, not literally, but they had people that were quite upset about, that extra penny. And so Elkins built this story in conjunction with us to help visualize what that penny was financing. And so you can monitor here the revenues each year for how much they brought in with that extra bit of money. And then down here, they just showed folks, okay, we bought a little extra lights and flowers and stuff for Christmas. We hired some new officers. We tore down some dilapidated buildings that were hazardous. But what's interesting about this is it sort of ties in together all of what Stories is about. JB talks all the time about the trust in government. We want folks, and let's face it, here in the past few years, there's been a breakdown of trust from the federal level all the way to the local level. And it's important that folks understand and know how their dollars are at work for them. And this is a perfect way to communicate that. So if you have a bond that you issue and you're getting revenues from that bond, you can show folks where that bond revenue is, and then you can take that money that you've gained from that bond and then be able to list transaction by transaction, vendor by vendor. Here's where we are in phase one. Here's who we paid. And here are the pictures, the physical proof, the evidence that we're going to do what we campaigned on, what we said what we were going to do. So folks can physically see that those tax dollars hard at work. And so I look forward to working with you guys. Please come up with big, bold ideas for this. We have folks that have built volunteer fire departments and have been tracking, say, hey, the first wall of that has been put up, and here's what vendors we paid. We put pipe in the ground. Here's the first vendor that we paid. Here's phase one. Here's the backhoe digging the hole. And folks really love to see that, and the feedback for that has been absolutely tremendous. Nitro, for example, Lisa Reed and Nitro, they tear down a new building probably every week. They tear down a new building and then they put it on their story. Hey, we got this money from taxpayers. These hazardous structures, we're doing a lot of police call runs out there. They're dangerous. They're a hazard. We're tearing them down. We're doing what you want us to do with it. So come up with big, bold ideas, new stuff that's going on in the county, things that you guys want to communicate or visualize. Get with me, and be happy to help you build that. And you guys are, I think, your 42nd or 43rd county that ended up hopping on this. You're about the 36th or 37th live. I'd have to look at the number. So you guys are hopping right in at a perfect time. We're zooming with this. We started out with maybe 8 counties and like 4 cities. Now we're up to 44 counties and like 50 cities. So the feedback has been tremendous, and we appreciate you guys' hard work. So any questions for me? I know I talk fast.
I'll throw a bookend on that one for you.
So, two things. I think you guys have a unique opportunity here to market, right? So you are on the border, and so there are a myriad of people who live just across the line. And, what your guys' task is to tell a lot of those people that that line is better lived on this side. And this is, I think, can be a really amazing tool to show people what their tax burden is, right? So we can build you a story that somebody can type in their income, their property tax, you name it, and then you can have it to where if they click a button, then it will immediately show how that would change on this side of the line. And I you could call it like the Hardy County difference, or whatever you want to do, and figure out all the ways in which it makes life a lot easier to live over here than over there. And I think that could be super cool. And for you guys, I think that Skylar touched on this just a little bit, but we live in a world where people are essentially incapable of having difficult conversations with each other. And it's destroying the country. We have to stop hating people for disagreeing with us, because no one has ever come up with a solution to a problem by finding a bunch of people they agree with. Solutions to problems are found when you have conversations with people you disagree with. And this is, in my opinion, a big step in doing that, because when everyone knows what's true, you cannot argue about the facts. You're then only arguing about the policy. And when you can get the fact argument out of the way, the policy argument's a lot easier to have. And sort of my challenge for you guys, and I say this to every time I talk to a group of students and grown-ups for that matter, is we have to change this, or it's going to get exponentially worse. We can't fix it. Well, Skylar's pretty young. I'm too old to fix this stuff, right? It's gonna have to be you guys. It has to be the youngest generation that's coming along that sets the example for the rest of us. Because quite frankly, we are a little lost as a group. And so we believe that this is one of those steps where the government is saying to the people, we're gonna not let you argue about facts anymore. It is up for debate as to whether or not this money should be spent here or here, but it is not up for debate as to whether it was spent. And that, I think, gives us a glide path into being able to have those conversations. So we would love to answer any questions you guys have. I don't know how long of a meeting you guys have today, but we are truly appreciative of you guys being on board with us. And I wish every county brought the political science students too. This was great. I'm really appreciative of y'all being here too.
One reason I'm really happy about it, so I ran on transparency. That was one of my platforms. I know all of us may have ran on transparency. So it's very important. I'll tell you a concrete example for how this comes into play. So, there are lawsuits that can come against the county. That's something that's happened in our county, and you have to be accountable for how you decide to walk the path of dealing with a lawsuit. You might not have had anything personally or as a commission to do with the lawsuit, but we're in charge of the finances of the county, so the lawsuit automatically comes to the county commission. And people have questions about that. They should, and they do. And so someone had sent me, we had already going live, but we didn't have it individualized for how much we pay in salaries to people, meaning like line items for this person was paid this amount of salary. Because sometimes in the course of things, people get put on paid administrative leave until the law can decide whether they're right or wrong. That's just how it goes, because it's just part of the process. Well, people want to know, if someone is in that situation, how much is getting paid to them. Well, now you can go and you can see every person that the county employs, how much they were paid per year. And that was something we were able to put on this site. So when someone just, it's been within the last 2 weeks, sent me a question about that, I just sent them the link, because right there, there it is, right there. They can just go look at it, and that tells them, because, what we're saying with that is, yes, we did have to make a decision. We think it was the right one, and that is the most fiscally responsible one, but there could be a debate about that. If, you have a legitimate argument. I don't think you probably do, but there it is, and you can look at the numbers. That's how it comes into play. You guys have any questions?
Well, just so they can go play with it, I forgot to mention the URL, which would probably be helpful. Hardy County WV.opengov.com. So any county or city that we have online, use their name and then WV, all one word, lowercase, .opengov.com. So it's hardycountywv.opengov.com. And just so folks are aware, just so that you understand how this all came about, we've actually purchased the licensing and the software at the state level. So the county actually isn't paying for any of this. This is at no cost to them. What's the thing you always say about the Greenbrier? Yeah.
Well, not everybody gets to go to the Greenbrier, but my mom always said it's not free, it's included. It's like breakfast at the Greenbrier.
Yeah.
But it's they tell you you're going to go downstairs and eat breakfast and it's free. But I
Are you
promise
picking
pay
on my
for it
shirt
as well.
today, JB?
Oh, I did see that.
Are you picking on my shirt today?
Yeah. And they don't even have free breakfast anymore, or they don't even have included breakfast anymore. You have to pay for it also. But the long and the short of it is that there's a few other huge applications for this too, which makes it really smart for us to purchase these for the counties. I mean, and this is sort of getting way down into the weeds, but all of the 55 counties have their own accounting systems. And my office has to audit all 55. All 247 cities have their own different accounting systems. We have to audit all those. All 450 volunteer fire departments have one. We have to audit all of them. This is the first step in us unifying the accounting systems of all the local governments, right? And which will save, we have an estimate of around $25 million almost every year if we buy one accounting system for everybody instead of everybody having their own. And then our audits are faster and they're less expensive and we can do them from anywhere. We can do them on cloud-based, accounting systems that we've built, and we give these guys the tools to do it, right? Because if you guys wanted to go buy a new accounting system right now, it'd be $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 plus a giant increased annual cost. And so again, I cannot force these on. I mean, I actually can force this stuff on people, but if we start to build this relationship where when we give you software that works really well, you think it's going to be really good, whoever the next auditor is going to be able to have that conversation with all these local governments and take that next step to where we can buy a much more sophisticated, much bigger, much better accounting system. We buy it once for everybody. It's way cheaper than everybody buying it for themselves. And it has all these other ancillary benefits. And so this is the first step in doing that too, which is also really cool. But you got to build that trust first, especially when you're Berkeley, Jefferson, Hardy, Morgan, Grant. These counties, they don't, when somebody from the state government walks into the room, they don't usually go, oh, welcome. It just is what it is. And that's something we're trying to remedy as well.
We appreciate it, and we just, as you were presenting that little tool there, that might be something that we could put out that would help maybe market or at least help people understand. We're talking about a little bit later on the agenda, our housing shortage. And we certainly would like to have, obviously, more business and more job opportunities for these young people.
Sure.
But we also have to make sure that they have a decent place to live, which is right now pretty much a hard find, if you can find.
It's a good problem to have.
So, yeah.
It means there's market. There's a lot of places where I live, being one of them, where we do not have a housing shortage. And I can assure you that the county commission in Kanawha County wishes that they did. But yeah, I mean, all of those things, and you can say, look, here's the program we created to try to incentivize home builders, right? And then you can show whatever the revenue that went out to this program, and then you can show the new housing developments. You can say we had to increase X to get water lines and gas lines to these places, right? Because none of that stuff's free. And all of those things start in this room. And it's how you start to tell the total story of here's our idea, here was our plan, here were the results. Because it's just important for people to know when it didn't work as when it did, including you. And it's important for you to know quickly if it isn't working. Because you can't change if you're not even paying attention to the results.
One thing we piloted with Wheeling, it actually kind of fell off. I'd like to pick it back up. We incorporated census data into this, and we were able to help them set benchmarks on their census and household income. What's our total population of it's Wheeling, so city. What happens when we raise water rates? How does that affect income? What happens when we reduce water rates? How do people save money on that? And we're able to drill down into the very deep granularity of, hey, like, how are we changing people? I mean, we're all put up. I'm not elected, but you guys are. And how are we serving people? and what are the outcomes of our service? And whenever we make these decisions, what is the data telling us about, are we bringing people in? Are people leaving? Are property values rising or falling? Do you have a population boom or a population bleed? And those things are really good. And now you can get that through your census data, but you can't take PDFs from the Census Bureau and be able to set benchmarks and say, hey, next month we want to do this, or next month we want to do that. And so that's another really important thing. And when it comes to these stories, I forgot to mention, usually government likes to stay off Facebook, but you can make Facebook posts and Twitter posts. So like whenever you want to build a new
Instagram, the youth are here.
Yeah.
Sure, they don't even use Facebook.
Or one of them TikToks. Yeah. No,
TikTok.
Snapchat.
No, but
But it makes them instantly, right? And actually, that is the magic of what the stories are. Is it takes an undigestible thing and turns it into an easily communicated story to the public.
And JB, so I went to visit the class. I spoke
Yeah.
to this class last week. So they did have a question on this, and we did talk about it some. So you mentioned what's going on, in Hardy County, how Hardy County is unique in terms of housing, in terms of where we are on the Virginia border, the stories that can come from that. So this class, they wrote this out. How do you think the wealthy part-time residents moving into this county will affect our economy and our cost of living? For example, do you think businesses will raise their prices to make more money off the wealthier residents? So I told an interesting story on this. Oldest son had gone to an academy, and it was at Fairmont State University that year. This was a couple years ago. And so there are kids from all across the state there. And we were talking to a couple from Morgantown, my wife and I were. We were seated at their table when they had the end of the week presentations, for the kids. And there's a couple from Morgantown. They obviously believe, their home prices were much higher than ours in Hardy County. Morgantown people always, think that for whatever reason, right? So my wife and I go out and compare it afterward. We're like, I wonder, because we know the housing prices in Baker, where we live. My family lives in Baker. We know they're pretty high. Turns out they were higher at that point.
It's actually
The housing prices in Baker, average home price was more than Morgantown.
But it's not surprising. It's really, really pretty here. And you're really, really close. I mean, all of this is to say, and I think what the question that's posed there, 30 years ago, we would have to use antiquated anecdotal evidence, right? In 5 years, somebody'd look back and be like, well, our housing prices are higher. Well, how do you know? And they wouldn't have any of the data to compare it to, right? What this gives us the ability to do is if we decide we want to know that, we can start linking data sets together in real time. And so that, housing price data is available. People moving here, data is available. Where they come from is available. The price of milk is available. All of those things, right? You throw it into one comparative data set, and we can monitor it in real time. And you can figure out what you're doing, if it's fixing those problems, or if they even exist. Because so frequently governments in my whole life were just saying, well, I think this is happening. Well, that's how you get a state budget that doubles in 25 years, right? The only way you can make great decisions is if you have great data. And the only way you can have great data is if you understand the questions you want to know the answer to. And this gives people who ask those great questions, and that is a great question, the ability to build those data sets. And then you can start to change course in the middle. Nothing's binary. And there's too many people get elected who think, well, I've already started down this one and I don't want to admit I was wrong. Nobody cares if you admit when you're wrong as long as you have a plan to fix it. Nobody's perfect, right? And none of us pick perfect lines of fixing problems, right? And this gives us the ability to come to the public and say, man, the problem is correct. The solution was wrong. Here's how we know, and here's what we're going to do to have a better solution.
Without the data, we wouldn't be ranked, what is it, number 3 or number 5 in the nation for second home?
Number 5.
In this county?
This county.
Hardy
In
County.
the nation.
Hardy County, number 5 in 2021.
But I'll give you an interesting fact on that with your class. I'm the administrator of the health department. So the health department gets funding from different sources, and one of them is state funding to provide services. But that state funding is based on population, okay? But we cannot count the secondary homeowners that live here. So if we've got 1,000 people from DC, Maryland, Delaware living here for 6 months out of the year, we still service them people at the health department, but we don't get funding from them people because they are secondary homeowners, so we don't get to include them in our population. So there's positives and negatives depending. And I'm not saying that's a negative, it's just it would be nice if I got the extra
We
funding.
also rank number 2 in big government, I'm gonna call it.
In
State.
preempted, we're number 1 in preempted legislation to limit the power of local government.
What do you mean by that?
Well, state level trying to take over more power, take it away from us.
Oh. And what was the metric for that?
So it's, let me find
He's
this
got the
chart.
bar graph, you should see it.
Yeah.
Virginia
It's
is down on
basically
the average.
spending.
We're way up
Spending
there.
is what it is.
Oh.
It's-
Utah or someone's about, or no,
Montana.
Montana.
Oh, you're talking about West
higher than
Virginia
us.
being that.
Yeah.
I thought you meant
No,
Hardy County.
no,
So,
Hardy County.
no, I mean that's correct. We also have a pretty unique environment here where all of the counties and cities are sort of chartered under the state constitution, and that doesn't again mean that we should continue down the road that we're going. But the way that we created our local governments was pretty unique in the marketplace, actually. I will tell you, so it's funny you bring up this sort of second home thing, right? So every time anybody drives through here, they're like, damn, like, why don't I have a place here?
Right.
I mean, it is indescribably beautiful. You get on 48, I mean, it's pretty in Virginia, but it's much prettier on this side. And like, I caught the sunset last night, and it's ridiculous. I mean, it really is sort of magical, right? And like, that's valuable. And you don't want to say to people who have $100 million and want to build a 5,000 square foot house that looks at that sunset, you're not welcome, right?
Right.
You don't want to say that, but you also need to know what that person's presence here does to the people who always live here. And then figure out what's the best course of action for everyone to be able to enjoy this. As many people as possible. And I don't know, did you guys watch that show, Yellowstone?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know if you guys watched that or not, but you remember the guy ran for governor, and his gubernatorial platform was "Progress stops here," which is a Hollywood version of that. But it's interesting for us, especially right here. The idea is that people from California were moving to Montana because they wanted to have California and Montana. They had no interest in being Montanans. That actually makes sense to me. And our great challenge when we have these things that we have is how do we grow intentionally, right? How do we say to people, we really want you to move here if you want to be a West Virginian. Like, I don't want here to be Maryland, and I don't want here to be New York or wherever the places that people are leaving because it's unpleasant, right? We want them to come here and be us. And we can learn from people. And
I got a good quote from Hot. You remember me putting it back. Move here, and for the first 10 years, sit back, keep your mouth shut and listen.
Yeah.
And then after that, you start voicing your opinion.
that's a great,
And that's a very good quote.
that's just good advice for everyone, right? If you're new anywhere, it's always better to listen.
Julian them's dad.
Brown Hot?
Brown.
Hot.
His name is Brown Hot.
It was. He's passed away, but yeah.
They make sandwiches called that in Lexington. They're called hot browns.
Well, and another thing, which I'm sure you can attest to, that they're going to discover, the Eastern Panhandle and most parts of West Virginia might as well be two different states, because Charleston don't really understand anymore what's going on in the Eastern Panhandle.
There's really like kind of 5 states anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you're right.
Right. I mean, it's the north central part of the state is completely different. I mean, they're all basically. It's a lot of Catholic folks in north central West Virginia. There's an enormous amount of economic activity happening there that is, it's entrepreneurial based, which isn't happening most other places. They have the university, which changes everything. And I don't even put you guys with the Eastern Panhandle. The counties that border Virginia are their own thing.
Yeah.
I mean, really, from Greenbrier to Tucker, and probably Preston, you would include in there too, at least the eastern half. It's so agricultural and it's so sparsely populated, and it just is different. Then the Eastern Panhandle turned into its own thing. The coal fields have always been their own thing, and then Parkersburg through the gas fields on the Ohio River, basically Doddridge down to Wood, those are completely different too. And then Charleston and Huntington are a whole other place. And every single one of those people gets their money and they're from different sources, and so the economies are all different, and none of them really understand what. I mean, I don't know how many people from Huntington have ever stayed at the hotel I stayed in last night, but it's probably not very many, right? And it's really a feel thing. I mean, you can't really do it unless you go everywhere. But you know, the long and the short of it is, everybody says we want to get these people here. We want to have rich people move here. Grant sounds great on theory, and it is great in many respects. But there are problems associated with every single thing that's good too.
You know what's helped us more than anything, JP, is we have our own internet TV provider, Hardy Telecommunications.
You are not wrong. It's
So-
a huge deal.
People from DC, especially during COVID, when they could work from home,
Is it called HardyNet?
yeah,
Yes.
And they also have it in Grant.
Already one day.
Yeah,
They got it in
working-
they're working on it.
They got it in Hampshire.
Was it Hampshire where they already
Yeah.
have it?
Yeah, my parents just got it.
Were you guys in conjunction with one other county when it was sort of built? Did you do it with somebody else? Or did they just?
It was all Hardy
It was
County.
all
That
Hardy
was
County.
2012, and they received grants, and that's when.
But then you got judges and lawyers and stuff that figured out they could move up, buy their second home here, and live in this
And
environment
some of them
and
are,
still work.
Yeah.
And you know, because of the internet.
Yeah.
And it's
and some
crazy.
of them are becoming involved on our boards.
Yeah.
Like they are, you know,
And that's not the worst thing in the world. As
No.
long as they share our values.
it's complete. Like
Yeah.
it's very like I'll tell you an example with the planning commission. So we have committees on the planning commission. You know, we needed an attorney for one of those, and so we have attorneys who have joined who they actually work in Northern Virginia, DC, but they have homes out here, and so yeah, that's extremely helpful to have that.
Mr. Garner?
And I don't know if you guys saw this or
Mr.
not,
Garza?
and if you're making money off of HardyNet covering your years, but Starlink announced yesterday that it is
That's who it
available
is. You just probably
throughout West Virginia.
I call him Johnny Cocker.
I don't know-
I play golf with him.
I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but
very
Starlink
nice.
knows the satellite-driven high-speed internet. So all 55 counties now have access to Starlink. And it's $400 for the receiver, and it's $9. And I know I'm talking. I'm not like I live in Charleston. My internet's putrid.
Okay.
You probably have better internet here than I have at home, and I might get it just because you can then take it with you wherever you want. Right? Then your cell phone is always connected to the internet and your cell, and because you can connect up to 50 devices, right? And you know, this is just us solving a big problem, and actually, internet access is a perfect one. I mean, for the last 25 years, politicians have been walking into rooms like this and saying, "We're going to get you internet," and they've been putting billions of dollars behind internet. And guess who doesn't have internet? Everyone. Right? And so we then ended up spending 20 years building antiquated internet. So now there's internet, but no one uses that kind of internet anymore. People don't want internet that comes in on a wire. And they don't need as fast of internet as people say. You just need internet that's fast enough. You don't need, 5 gigs or whatever. All of these things, the data compression works, and so you can, stream YouTube and TikTok, whatever you want. We weren't monitoring our spending. And what ended up happening is they built internet in the same 3 places 5 times. Right? And then they would come here and say, "We're going to get you internet," but you didn't have any way to hold them accountable, and it never happened. And you guys obviously have a little bit better thing, but if you're in Mingo County, right, or Clay County, or you're in, basically everywhere, or Doddridge, they have basically dial-up internet after 25 years of politicians spending billions of dollars to not build internet. And they give them fancy names and project titles and stuff, but they spend all the money, and 2 companies get all of it, and they build it in 3 cities.
When we went to County Commissioners Association meeting, we had a speaker from Frontier Communications. They threw a map up on the wall. Hardy County, a little piece of Grant, a little piece of Hampshire County, were a different color than the rest of the state.
Well, yeah.
Because of the internet service provider.
And then there's one little tiny circle at Snowshoe, too.
Yeah.
It's so funny. They spent $100 million to get internet to 3,000 condos. But if you live in the rest of Pocahontas County, which is the largest county in the state, you don't have any. But the long and the short of it is if people have been forward thinking and they'd said, what is the internet that's going to exist in 2025? Instead of us building the internet that everyone in California already has, why don't we build the internet that California is going to want? Then we'd be ahead. But now we're going to end up with miles and miles and miles and miles of fiber linked internet that in 10 years nobody's going to even want. And we're going to be behind again. And that's how data works. because only the politicians and only these companies knew what was happening instead of everyone else.
Good question.
Yeah.
I know you've been following the Oakwood case and settlements and everything. How do you feel that, is it getting dispersed fairly? Do you feel like that's getting handled like that?
Fair is a strange word. I don't know that it could ever be fair.
Right.
Because if I'm being honest, the fairest way to distribute that money would be to basically give 95% of it to Boone, Logan, Mingo. I mean, you guys, I'm sure you had a problem here,
Oh,
but it's a completely different world in the delta between what those places used to be, what they are now.
I know you're talking to Jack.
But I think it's fine.
Jack Woodman.
Yeah.
Senator Woodman.
Commissioner Woodman, too.
He was in Clipchamp.
Yeah.
I know he told me he's in down Summers County. I've never been in there.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
Somewhere. Anyway, don't get me wrong. I'm thinking it's 2 weeks time. Some bad drugs got out, and the bodies came in faster than they could take. And I'm talking about 102 weeks or something. It was a ridiculous figure from that down. So people don't realize around here how bad it is.
Well, and people from where I am don't always realize that it's also bad here. There's also this problem where you drive here and everything looks nice, right? But you have the same problems everybody else does. They just, you have enough going on that's good that you don't see all the stuff that's bad. You know, another data point up to your point there, and this is statewide, we are at half funded for John Doe and Jane Doe burials. And so, you know, they have to pay the funeral home when they pick up an overdose victim that they don't know who it is. There's so many of them now that we can't pay the funeral homes to prepare the bodies. I mean, think about how terrifying that is. I mean, that is a brutal thing. We get calls from these funeral homes in our office all the time. They're like, you know, we sent them a $200,000 invoice for picking up these 25 bodies or whatever it was, and they haven't paid us in 10 months. Well, we're sorry, they're out of money.
We've talked with the Attorney General's office about maybe trying to get some of those expenses online per board. Right now, the issue, I was talking about chart of accounts earlier, the issue is tracking that expenditure because we have to attach descriptions to when that money is spent.
They don't have a system.
They don't have a system of account yet. And so a lot of that's being kept, I assume, on Excel. And we have to figure out the methodology about how we would build those sites and how we would get that integrated into the checkbook system. But they're keeping their own expenses, and as long as we can translate that data into our system, we can put it on checkbook. We just need to figure out a way to do it.
So to me, what that fund needs to be done with is it has to be set up like a real foundation. So you spend the interest every year and grow the principal behind it. And you can use that money to leverage other money. You can borrow against it, right? But I think the $1 billion total sort of nexus of that money needs to basically stay the same forever. And we need to use that money as a way to unsolve the problem from the back. I mean, helping adults is important, but making sure that that way less of these guys go that way, it's our only chance, because if the problem replicates itself, we're completely screwed. I mean, we're basically out of money now. And if we have to do it again, it's game over. And so that the most of that money needs to be in prevention, in my opinion. I mean, you got to take care of people that are sick, but we have to make sure that kids understand, or I don't know how to do it. Nobody knows how to do it. It would have been done if people knew how to do it. But the goal needs to be to not replicate the problem while simultaneously trying to care for people that need help.
That's a great statement.
Yeah, it is.
That's
And I think they must be pushing that, because I know the director for our region is talking like that.
Good.
About investing it and using the interest to pay for these projects.
I love that.
So I think it's very smart, because it's very important. You guys have you guys want to have some hard questions? Any of you guys?
You got a pen and a paper? Well, I can give you my email address,
Okay, that'd be
and because sometimes people don't like asking questions out loud. You guys can just email me, and anything you want, whenever you want. And if you'd like for us to come back for the class and do a tutorial on how to use the state checkbook site, It's really cool.
During COVID, I started a essay contest, and it got shut down because of COVID. And there were only a few. We didn't do a great job getting the word spread. I'll be honest. But I would really love to start that back up again. And we have prizes, and we bring the kids. The plan was to bring our top 10 winners or whatever from all around the state to the Capitol. We did a photo op with him, Speaker Hanshaw, President Blair, Governor Justice, and just have a day at the Capitol. And then the end goal was to get those top 10 kids or top 20 kids from different counties, different regions of the state, and to have some sort of like student delegation to where like you guys can help me build a budget here in OpenGov, and then we can present it to the legislature, present it to the governor, and say, hey,
The goal was to every year present what the high school students of West Virginia thought West Virginia should be spending its money on.
and if the kids can figure it out, you guys can figure it out.
I got a
So we'll
question.
figure it out.
So I know you said that you live in Charleston, and
I'm not from Charleston though. I just
You
live
just
there.
live there.
Yeah, that's why I'm cool.
my my family also has an apartment in Charleston, and I know the internet speed is not very great.
Yeah.
So do you think? And I know there's a lot of providers in Charleston as well, but with
There's actually only one.
only one.
Frontier is coming, but I only have one option for internet in Charleston
Okay.
or whatever. Something.
It's Optimum, yeah. It's such,
That's
well,
what it's called now.
Optimum.
It's such a huge bill. I just put it on auto pay. I don't even know what the company's called.
And what's that internet called that's coming? That came.
Starlink.
Starlink. Okay.
Yes.
So do you think that with that coming to West Virginia, do you think that most of the people in West Virginia will switch to Starlink, and that'll put the internet services that are in progress right now? Do you think that would put them out of business?
I don't think it'll put them out of business. Competition is the reason why this country exists, right? If they provide better service, maybe. You guys have a service here that I think people like. My gut tells me not many people here will switch. I mean, if you get a product that's a price you like, that works almost all the time, and I mean, again, I don't have your internet, but if that's what it is, and there's probably a loyalty